Our relationship with animals almost always reflects a very clear hierarchy. Humans at the top, animals below, usually being food or pets. But what if things were reversed and we became the animal food?
Animan, or animal human,
Is a manga that constructs exactly this subversion in the most disturbing way possible, making humans be hunted, tortured, and devoured by animals that have the same consciousness as us. The story of Animal Human could end here, showing a single chapter, but things advance in a totally unexpected way. We're introduced to some other anthropomorphic animals, especially a feline named Nero, who was a jack of all trades. One day, while pushing a cart with people destined for slaughter, he was touched by a girl who looked deeply into his eyes and asked for his help. From that moment on, something changed. The animals continued their routines of hunting humans, and humans were increasingly drawn into this mirrored violence. The bar areas were decorated with hunting trophies on the walls, displaying human heads, and the meals were described with the same gastronomic delicacy. But Nero began to feel something strange, something unique that the other animals would never agree with. Of course, he hid this from his other friends because he had even vomited all the food. But this thought only took hold in his mind, and he understood everything that was happening when he saw Ernest, the village leader, who was giving the children a tour of the farm. Ernest explained how important it was to respect food because they were taking the life of a living being, and at that moment, witnessing the person's final agony, tied up, Nero somehow remembered everything. He was the man who had been devoured after he crashed his car with his daughter. Nero looked at Ernest in horror and felt that he had devoured him, and this meant that he had been a human being. Rage almost took over, and Nero nearly attacked Ernest, but he composed himself when one of the cubs spoke to him. The village leader didn't realize what was happening. Nero was despairing with these memories and tried to talk to one of his friends, asking if he remembered when he was a human, but he only heard that it was all in his head because it couldn't have happened. He tried to find some emotional stability, but everywhere he went and looked, he only saw people being dehumanized to astronomical levels. People on leashes like animals being roasted like barbecue, and even placed in contexts of explicit abuse. Nero's emotions were conflicted because besides wanting to understand what was happening, he desperately wanted to see his daughter, but he didn't know if she was dead or alive, as a human or as an intermediate creature. Just like him, despite his doubts about one thing, he was profoundly certain. He attacked one of the animals and brutalized it, telling himself that the reason for his existence was precisely to end them all.
After killing his first victim, Nero calmed down and commented, now rested, on how full he was and that the taste of animals was truly delicious. Nero made sure to kill every animal present on the day of his death. The animals were extremely frightened by a serial killer on the loose. Some thought it was all an exaggeration, others theorized that it was a human seeking revenge, and this thought was partly not wrong. One day, after eliminating almost all his targets, only Ernest remained. Nero invaded his house and killed him with a point-blank shot, blowing his head off. But when he thought it was all over, the real Ernest appeared to shake things up even more. His psyche showed Ernest what was happening to Nero, and he used his trump card to destabilize him. He showed Tika, his daughter, still alive and human. Nero tried to talk to her, but she didn't recognize him because Ernest had cared for her as if she were a pet. Nero cried, indignant at not being able to protect her, and lunged at Ernest, who pierced him with his horns. It was at that moment, in that attempt to save her, that Tika remembered her father and managed to see him within his new form. Even pierced, Nero continued fighting, but Tika was absolutely shocked to see him being devoured by Ernest, who was eating his brain. He bit the flesh very slowly to savor that tremendous delicacy, an animal with human memories. When she awoke, Ernest, in the same sick and gentle manner, took her in. He told her the whole truth, including the origin of that mixture of animal and human. Ernest said it all began with a simple goat, the last of its kind, which humans called the maiden. To save her species from extinction, scientists tried everything. They managed to rewrite her DNA to make her capable of producing offspring without a male. But when the first kid was born, the researchers hadn't counted on the amount of energy required for this type of reproduction. So the maiden began to devour her own offspring, developing a very strong craving for meat. One day, by coincidence, or as Ernest himself said, by destiny, the maiden attacked, killed, and ate a man who was cleaning her enclosure. And so, unexpectedly, the first of that species was born, carrying in its DNA both human and animal genes. Ernest tells Tika that he only ate Nero because human animals were more delicious than ordinary human flesh. What happens after that is equally terrifying. Tika is taken to trial to take the blame for the murders, and then Ernest accompanies her to the moment that had been denied to her for a long time. She would be devoured. On the way, he expressed his feeling of superiority, placing himself on a level above everyone else, while telling her the rest. Regarding the details of that human experiment that went terribly wrong, he said that some human animals were able to retain parts of the memories of the people they consumed, but this didn't necessarily make them a kind of human reincarnation. He believed that Tika would also return with those memories, because her father had managed to do so. In other words, he wanted this to happen only to devour her in her new animal form. Tika was introduced to the mother of them all, a monstrous and fat goat that constantly gave birth. Ernest explained that he made her feel the most varied types of emotions precisely for that moment, to give an even more indescribable flavor to her brain. Everything had been calculated to end as it began, like a plate full of food. Unfortunately, Tika couldn't do anything but accept what was already reserved for her. Her father didn't mysteriously appear to save her, nor did another human animal with past memories interfere. She was devoured without further ado. After a while, Tika was born in the form of a lamb, which Ernest arrived in a basket, saying there was no need to hurry her to recover her memories. He wanted her to be ready at the right time, to then eat her, but her eyes, the innocence of Tika, failed to read the malice of their herbivorous predator. Human was a very interesting story to follow because the manga doesn't give much room to breathe. The plot twists happen one after another, and the farm is invaded by a group of humans who begin killing the animals that try to resist and capturing those who surrender. Ernest is finally killed, and Tika is elevated to a not very different fate because the world was immersed in this insane desire to eat. The farm where everything happened was just one of many scattered in various locations. Humans, in collaboration with human animals, consumed the flesh of their equals without the slightest problem. Ernest's village was only destroyed because he had broken the rules. Each farm was supplied with humans for the consumption of its inhabitants, and in exchange, they generated human animals with human memories that were seen as delicacies by select groups in society who appreciated this type of somewhat secret food. It's not as clear as the introduction of human animals is common knowledge to humanity, because Nero, in his human form, found everything very strange when he saw them. This suggests that everything happens behind the scenes, and that only a part of society, those at an elite level, knew what was going on. This distorted friendly relationship shows only that the weakest deserve to be devoured by the strongest, and that's how they manage to sit at the table alongside different species, to devour each other while commenting on absurdities with extreme naturalness.